So today's video I'm going to go over how I clean my competition handguns. So the equipment you're going to need is, I get these Q-tips. I just buy these at a local Walmart or whatever. It's in the health and beauty aids aisle. It's got different sizes of Q-tips, and I find that very useful. Also, I run the complete Lucas line of gun oils and gun greases. I use the gun grease on my trigger components only, so I won't be using that one today. And I also purchased a fine needlepoint oil dispenser, and I use this to get oil up into the channel of my slide. And then I run an optic on my gun. My gun is clear and empty. I use these lens cleaning wipes, and these are nice because they are individually wrapped. So I can take these to the range and competitions with me. When you're shooting competitively, or if you're just shooting a lot of rounds in general, your optic will get clouded with debris. So you do need to keep that clean during your range activity, whatever the case may be. So I got laid out here some different sizes of Q-tips that I like to use. I use these fine tip ones to get into the channel to clean that out. And these thicker ones I use for the barrel and other spots. And then these are just standard Q-tips. So that's everything we need. We'll go ahead and break down the gun now. So I'm running a SIG P320X5. I'm running the Legion frame on it. Other than that, it's pretty much a SIG P320. So we'll go ahead and break that down. We'll lock the slide back, move the takedown lever to the downward position, and then the slide just comes right off like that. We'll then remove the takedown lever, and then the whole FCU will come out of the gun. So to get this out, I find it best to push on the back a little bit as you're lifting up. And then it comes out of there. There's a channel in the back that the back of the FCU sits in. And then it just comes right out like that. So my normal field strip cleaning I do every time after I shoot. So once or twice a year I will take the whole FCU apart, and I will completely clean all this stuff. It's not necessary for your standard cleaning. So you can get in here with fine brushes and Q-tips, and do not use any oil or solvents down here, because you can get oil into some of these back trigger components and that can cause malfunctions. So I dry clean this for the most part. So this is the gun, the registered gun. The serial number is on the FCU. And what I like about SIG is I can take this bare frame and I can swap it out with a different frame if I were to have any issues with my frame, or if I want to run just a standard X5 frame. I like the Legions because they have extra weight in them. I'm running the standard weight that comes with the SIG X5s. I'm running the tungsten guide rod. This is an uncaptured guide rod with a 1911 spring. I'm running an 11-pound recoil spring. And I find that works well with my heavier bullets I'm shooting. All right, and then the barrel slides out after you take the guide rod out. And that's as far as you need to take down the gun. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my Lucas bore solvent out. And I'm going to use one of these wide tips. And I'm going to let some oil or some solvent get into all the grooves in the barrel. So one tip here, you don't want to stick your dirty Q-tip back in the solvent. So you want to use a new Q-tip every time you dip it in the solvent. And my Q-tip won't reach the whole length of the barrel, so I go from both sides of the barrel. You want that solvent to get in there and penetrate all that dirt and debris and let it do its magic. So I'm going to set that aside for now. And now I'm going to move on to the the frame for the firearm, the lower, if you will. So this doesn't get really that dirty. I'm going to grab some brushes here. So I have a wide variety of brushes I like to use, but for the most part I'll just use a standard gun cleaning brush. And I will dry clean the frame. I'm not going to use really any solvent on here. A lot of the stuff on this polymer tungsten infused lower will wipe right off with just a gun brush. You could do a detail cleaning if you want. I don't think it's necessary, except for like a couple times a year. I'll take it all the way apart and clean it all. All right, so that's all I'm going to do on the frame for the firearm. Next, I'm going to look at the FCU. I did have an issue a while ago where one of my springs back here came loose. So it's a good idea when you take this out to look it over to make sure all your pins aren't walking on you and everything is where it should be. Sorry about the noise in the background, it's my furnace kicking in. So like I said, the back of the FCU, I'm just going to dry clean it. I'm just going to take a brush, rub it in here. Most of the stuff comes out relatively easy, and that's if you are religious about cleaning your firearm. If you're going to go out and shoot thousands of rounds before you clean your firearm, you'll have to do a more detailed cleaning. Alright, and that's all I'm going to do on my FCU. Again, this is kind of a standard cleaning of after every range trip I make. This is going to be a bare minimum cleaning. If something's going to need more extensive cleaning, I will take it apart and address that issue at that time. 2, it's already significantly cleaner, and we'll do a third one. Alright, that third one's not too bad. I'm going to flip it over and I'll use the other side, just to save from going through too many patches here. Alright, that came out relatively clean. I'm happy with that. Next will be lubrication and assembly. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and lubricate the gun and assemble it back together. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the FCU back into the frame. The easiest way I found to do this is you get the trigger down into the shoe there where it fits through the hole. And then you see this tab on the back of the FCU. Get the trigger through the hole. Then you push forward a little bit and that tab will drop down. And then I push down a little bit, like halfway. And then I will move the FCU back into its final resting position into the frame. And then I push it down until the hole lines up. Then you reinstall the takedown lever. You have to rotate it to install this. You get that to line up. And then it'll push all the way in. You'll hear a click. Most guns you hear a click. On the 320s anyway. And then you move the takedown lever down into the down position. Then I'll set that aside. Then I will lubricate my barrel. I've shot in all kinds of different weather conditions. Sub-zero temperatures up here in Minnesota, all the way to over 100 degrees and really, really humid. I've been very happy with the Lucas oil products. All right, set that aside. Now I'll install my barrel into my slide. Or wait, before I do that, actually, it's easier to lubricate the rails of the slide before you install the barrel. And I like to use this needle point, like I said, and that'll get down into the channels where I want the lubrication. And I put a very, very thin coat of oil in there. Then I'll take these fine tip Q-tips and I'll just run it through there to kind of disperse the oil where I want it. All right, so now I can go ahead and I can put my barrel into my slide. Now I'm running an uncaptured guide rod, so it is a little more challenging to get this to install correctly. I use my pointer finger at the back of the guide rod, and I'll get that spring centered where I want it in the channel, and then I just push the guide rod down into the spring and center it, and there it is. The slide has been lubricated and put back together. Next thing I do, so the slide's going to have a friction point. It's going to be on the back of the FCU on these two tabs, and the front of the FCU on these two tabs. So I do like to keep that lubricated as well. So I put a little bit of oil on those. I'll take another Q-tip and disperse the oil where I want it. And now I can reassemble the firearm, putting the slide back onto the frame. Lock it back with the slide lock lever. Rotate your takedown lever back to the up position. Function test your weapon. Pull the trigger, hold it to the rear. Rack the weapon. Release to the sear, and then pull the trigger again. All right, so I haven't touched my optic yet. I saved that for last in case I were to spill any oil or anything on my optic. And I use these cleaning wipes, like I said. Got my fingers as clean as I can here. Then I just take the wipe out and wipe down the optic best I can. Then I'll take a Q-tip and dry it out and clean off any remaining debris that's on my optic. So what projects your optic is there's a lens in the back of the housing for the optic back here, and it projects a light through the optic. So if there's debris caught back in this back lens, then your optic will have a starburst and it won't look quite right. It took me a while to figure that one out. So I clean that out, and then finally I'll clean the inside of my optic. It doesn't really get too dirty back in there. This Trijicon SRO has a really robust housing on it, so the only thing that really gets dirty is the front of the optic. I do like the shroud on here. From the factory, the gun is oversprung, and your ejected casings could hit your optic, and that was happening on my Vortex optics I was running before. I did change my recoil spring to 11 pound, like I said, and then my brass was ejecting better, and it wasn't hitting my optic any longer. So that was another nice byproduct of running a heavier bullet, traveling slower. All right, so that's it. Hope this video was helpful, and if you run a 320 SIG P320 X5 like I do, hopefully some of these tips help you cleaning your firearms and keeping them running good. Thanks for watching.